Hey everybody, this is Dr. Maples, and today we're going to talk about resumes. I want to start out with some bad news. Most folks fall in one of two camps when it comes to resumes. The first one is they spend almost no time on the design, or possibly worse yet, they use templates that you can get off the internet or on Word so you look exactly like everyone else. The other camp is where you spend so much time on the design elements that you get lost in the story. You know, the whole purpose of a resume is to be able to summarize you as a job candidate in one very visual, very easy to understand piece of paper. It's like getting your foot in the door to help get that interview. So what we want to do is make sure that your resume tells a story, but it also represents you well as a candidate and looks reasonably visual to make sure that you stick out from everyone else without using templates. So what we're going to do today is talk about the basic things you absolutely must have on a resume, think about some easy ways that you can tell a story about who you are as a candidate, and finally, we're going to look at some basic design techniques, including some that involve getting help from others, for those of us who are not graphic designers, this guy, and make sure that your resume stands out. Now, before we do anything else, I'd love it if you'd subscribe to this channel. That makes me super happy when I see I get a couple more subscribers every morning. Also, if you could share this video and this channel with your student colleagues and friends, I sure would appreciate it. All right, we got a lot to do today, so let's get started. So a resume is a simple, straightforward piece of information that tells a story about who you are in a very small amount of time. It's kind of like a 30-second conversation of telling who you are to people who can just look at this piece of paper and learn a little bit more about why you're the perfect candidate. Now, there are some big, hard and fast rules that work with resumes. One of those is to stick with the one-page design unless you're late in your career. Make sure your name is big and bold at the top or the sides, somewhere super visible. They need to know exactly who you are. You also need to have your best contact information up there, your best email, and certainly your best phone number. Now, when it comes to fonts, I have a preference for Georgia. I love Georgia. It's a conversational font. It's not Times New Roman. It's actually a little bit bigger, so on folks who maybe need reading glasses but might not be using them yet, they can actually see the text a little bit better. Also, do at least 12-point font. There's zero reason ever to do anything smaller than 12-point font because people won't read it. Great resumes are all about telling a story about who you are. And sometimes telling a story is figuring out what pieces of information we need to include to progress the narrative and what things that we leave out because it distracts us or it doesn't really fit into the story. Jobs and education are great examples of that. These are two things that we have to list on our resume, however. So let's tease this out just a little bit. Now, with education, we do want to make sure we list at the minimum our most current degree. If you just graduated with a bachelor's degree, that's what you want to list. We're not interested in your high school experiences unless you think that might help you get a job because you have a local tie. We're just interested in your most recent college experiences. That could be as simple as putting that you have a Bachelor of Arts or a Bachelor of Science from a particular university and roughly when you graduated, or it could go into a bit more detail. In fact, this is part of our chance to tell a story about ourselves. Let's pretend that we want to highlight some of our skills that are relevant to this job. We could list our major, our minor, those might be relevant. We can even go into some concentrations that we had as part of our work. Is GPA important? Probably not. Unless you have a great GPA, most of the time, nobody cares. GPA is far more important for graduate school applications, and that's a whole separate conversation for another video and another day. Instead, we want to focus on the things that make you look good. So this is not a great time to bring up your 2.3 GPA. When it comes to jobs, we have to take a similar approach. We want to make sure that we list the jobs that are most relevant and most important to the job that we're applying to, things that might interest our potential employer. Things that we don't want to list are irrelevant jobs or jobs that were maybe super short term. You know, that old gas station job where you worked in the deli at the gas station in high school, we probably don't need to list that. Your more recent employment showing that you have particular skills, or at the bare minimum, that you can work in an office and be a good colleague, are the kinds of things that we want to tease out. Now, on top of that, we need to think about some skills and some examples. If you have a job where you can really hammer in on, I did this, this, and this, these are some of my accomplishments from this job, list it, give evidence, give numbers, give data, give anything you can to show that you are awesome. And remember, we're showing your best self, not your worst self. Talk only about positive things that are going to help progress your narrative. On top of that, too, we want to think about very specific parts of our job like training, certifications, equipment that we use, technology that we learned, and even, software that we interacted with as part of our jobs, and really hammer in those points as things that we got out of our jobs. Again, find ways to tell a story about why you're this awesome candidate. Tell your narrative, tell the best story about yourself. Now what we add on is a little bit of flash to make it stand out just a little bit better. Tell a little bit more about who you are and maybe try to find some personal connections for this job. Let's look at those. So what is it that makes you a person? Beyond this piece of paper, beyond this story that we're trying to tell, what makes you real? What are the things that make you stand out from everybody else that's going to apply? Look, I promise that 90% of the people out there are going to talk about how they're really good with organizational stuff and they're really dedicated and they're really working and people are going to fall asleep while they're reading and it's going to be so boring. What you want to do is have something that can help them remember, and above all this other stuff you've already said, that helps you stand out as a candidate. For example, one of the things you might want to list is your hobbies. Believe it or not, these kinds of activities, particularly any experiences or involvement that you have with them, can really show that you're a person. Listing that you're a metal detectorist, a rock climber, maybe you're really great at karate or karaoke. Even if it's intramural sports, these are the kinds of things that help you stand out. It's that thing 40, 50 minutes after they've looked through all the resume, they say, hey, let me go back and find that person that was the metal detector. That sounded pretty cool. I want to ask them about that. Boom, you've got an interview, you've got an in. That's going to be a question too. So tell me about metal detecting. And that's where you get to geek out on your own personal experience for a few minutes and really connect with these people. Anything like that, sports, entertainment, video games are a great way to connect. Find the things that interest them and make you stand out as a person. Now, while we're on the subject, let's also talk about achievements. Achievements can help show that you're a really cool person. Most students come to me and they don't have any achievements to talk about, and that's okay. But if you have received an award, a citation of merit, even something like a Dean's Award, it can be really cool to list it just to show that people thought that you were kind of cool. If you can find something that helps tell a story about who you are, that's even better. For example, I've had a couple of minor awards that have celebrated my work, and they kind of help to celebrate who I am as a researcher. So those are things that I would want to point out if I were using a resume. In the end, we're always trying to find little ways that we can hop in and make our resume personal, tell a cool story about who we are, and help find some things that are going to help people remember us when it comes down to picking who gets an interview and who doesn't. Now, here's probably the hardest part about resume building, and that's making it visual. We don't want to go over the top and make this thing so crazy glitter glue that people just go, ugh, and they push it aside. But we also don't want to have it so plain that people blend it in with others. Now, if you're not a graphic designer, which I am not, it's perfectly fine to reach out to friends or family who are graphic designers and ask for favors, or look at a website like Fiverr. Fiverr is a great example of a company that has people selling services fairly cheaply. And you can get folks to work on your resume and pretty them up a notch using Fiverr for $15-20, sometimes even cheaper than that. Now, I will say, if you go that route, you need to make sure the person can do what we call an infographic resume. That's basically where we include symbols or visual elements that will help basically pull that text to the surface and make your resume visible. Icons are a really great way to help celebrate things that you have done, your accomplishments, maybe even just a way to visually highlight something really cool that you did. All right, that's it for today. Get to work on that resume, and most importantly, remember, to get that job, you have to apply for it. So get your resume done, get that information turned in, and let them decide if you're the right candidate or not. We'll see you next time. Take care.